Hi guys, it's Owen here from InvestinU again with today's tip, trick and shortcut. Today's top tip is all about working with tables. Okay, now again, as you already know, we're using Excel 365, but I have to say, whenever I use Excel, one of the features I find myself using on a daily basis is tables. Tables for me are absolutely brilliant when it comes to Excel. If you're working with data that you need to change on a regular basis, in other words, you're going to be making changes to it, you're going to be adding to it, taking away from it. One thing you really want when you're working with that sort of data is dynamic data. And this is exactly what a table can do for you. Again, I'll briefly touch on them, but you're going to hear people talking about relative and absolute ranges. You're going to talk about named ranges. Okay. Tables work so much better than any of those. Okay. So rather than talking about it, let me show you exactly what I've been referring to. So if I come out of my presentation here, I'm just going to step out of this for a second and I'm going to open up my usual file that I have here. So again, not a particularly big file. There's 86 rows of data, 86 rows of data in there, okay, which has my headings at the top as well. Now, first thing to note is there's no real breaks in this data. I've got rid of any breaks. It's one clean piece of data here that I'm going to work off. Now, first thing you need to know is at the moment, what you're referring to here is just a range of cells. Okay, now essentially what you could potentially do here is you could highlight the whole thing using our lovely shortcut keys here, and I could go up to my name manager here, or the name box up here, and I could give that range of cells a name. And what that basically means is every time I want to refer to that range of cells, whatever name I gave it in the name box there, I could refer to it that way. The only problem is that if I'm adding data to the end of this constantly, that's where the named range falls down. I have to keep inserting it within the range for it to grow. Whereas if I keep dropping it on the end here, that's where I'm going to have issues. So the alternative is this fantastic table. Now, great thing is, and I'm going to show you three ways. There's three ways to create a range. Okay, there's three ways to turn a range into a table. Let's get the terminology right here. So the first one, click inside your data. And again, because this is one block of data, there are no breaks in it. You can see I'm just checking that very quickly there. It's only a small range. I click inside it. I could go to my Insert tab, and under the Insert tab on my ribbon is a button called Table. Okay, that's the first way you can turn a range into a table. Okay, the second is you can come to your Home tab. Okay, and under your Home tab there, you can see there's the button under the Styles grouping called Format as Table. And I can choose what color I like the look of and then apply that, and it'll turn into a table. Or the third and final way, generally my favorite, the shortcut way of doing it. So I click inside my data and I simply hit Control T, T for table. And you can see, look, comes up at the create a table, is the range A2 to G88. And you can see it's picked that up automatically for me because that's one block of data. I've no breaks in that data. Okay, if I had any blank rows in there, I'd have to highlight that first. Does my data have headers? Yes, it does. And I would generally click OK here. Now, just to show you, you get the same result. Insert table, and you can see same result. And again, as I said to you, you've also got the Home Format as Table, and you can choose the kind of color format. Now, as I said, I'm going to go with the Control T, A2 to G88. Does it have headers? It does. And I click OK, and instantly it applies a bit of formatting to it. Okay, now the thing about this is if you don't like that formatting, you can very easily change that format. Okay, but it does have a default color that it goes for. Now, how can you tell the difference? And here's a very quick one for you. How can you tell the difference between a table or somebody who painstakingly banded every second row themselves? When you can imagine there are people out there that do that all the time. Well, the big giveaway here is when you click inside a table, have a look for the contextual tab on your ribbon. These are called your contextual tabs. And you can see here, I've got one called Table Design. Now, again, as you know, I'm using Office 365. It might be slightly different for some of the older versions, but Table Design. And look, if I don't like the color scheme that it has, I can always come in here and hover over. And there's the live preview again kicking in. And I can always say, well, look, I like the look at this one, or I don't want any formatting whatsoever. Because maybe I'm going to be using conditional formatting, one of the topics we talked about last week. But again, I don't want it too confusing, overlaying, whatever. So you can see I can always set that to none. But there you go. You can see you can change that table size. But there's a one giveaway anyway. A couple of other things in here. Now, again, you can see you've got your table design. You can see automatically. So some of the advantages of using a table. You can see it's automatically switched on filters for me, which is fantastic. Okay, so you can see at any point I can filter this data. Now I didn't switch those on. As soon as you hit that, I hit that Control T, it gave it the formatting, and it turned on it turned on the filters for me. Again, just another advantage. If at any point, again, you don't want those filters, go up to this table design tab, and you can see, look, under the table styles options, I can always switch off the filters, or I can switch them back on again. But it does that by default for you. Okay, now, again, a couple of nice little features in here. One thing I would also say is have a look in the table design, because when you turn a range into a table, it automatically gives that table a name. So again, it's called the table one. Now, again, I would never accept the default range nor name, because again, table one, table two is not really going to make much sense. So what I would normally do before I do any analysis of this data, I would normally come straight into table design, straight over to table name, and give it a relevant name. Now, what I normally do is when I'm using tables, I always use TBL in front of it. Just makes it easier to find that data. TBL, and I'm going to call this, let's just call it small data. Now, again, you're going to notice here, by the way, small data. Small data is what I'm looking for here. What you'll notice is I'm not using any spaces. So if you've used name ranges before, you probably know you can't use spaces. Now, if I want to put a space in there of some sort, I can use the underscore. So I generally just keep it as one long word. And you can see here, I've got my table, small data, capital S, capital D. Always hit that enter key just to make sure that it's accepting that name. Okay? But there you have it. So now it's no longer called table one. It's now called TBL small data. Great thing about this is look at all the tools you get with this. At any point, I can turn this into a pivot table. Look, and see if it's not giving a range anymore. It's giving the table name. I won't do that for the moment. I'll come back to this later. I can remove duplicates. So if I want to make sure, well, look, before I start analyzing this, any duplicates in there, all these headers have to match before it's considered a duplicate. Click OK. Fantastic. No duplicates. Okay, and I can always convert this back, by the way. If you've turned something into a table, you want to convert it back, you can do very easily using the convert to range. Okay, now, that in all itself is absolutely brilliant, but just let me show you a couple of features that really, really will convince you how good tables are. So at the moment, my data goes down as far as row 88 here. So you can see that. Okay, you can see that it's gone down as far as row 88. So if I came over here and went, show me TBL small data, you can see, look, row 88. It's highlighted everything as far as row 88. Now, if I took, I'm just going to take, now I know these are going to be duplicates. I'm going to just take the last 4 records. So imagine they were brand new sales coming in. And I come in and I just drop them onto the end here. But remember, when I first created this table, it was down as far as row 88. If I now ask it to display it again, look, it goes down as far as, look at that. Instantly, when I add a new set of records, whether it's 1, whether it's 4, whether it's 100, the table instantly grows. Okay? And this is what I meant by dynamic. What do they mean by a dynamic data source? Well, every time you add data to it, your table instantly grows with that data. I mean, how good is that? So if I was to go the other way, let's remove the duplicates. Look. So obviously it's going to find 4. And if I say, well, what is TBL raw small data now? Look, it's gone back to row 88. Okay, so we know the height grows. What about the width? Well, let's find out. So if I wanted to say, okay, we've got our unit, we've got our price. I want to add a VAT column here. Okay, now as soon as I type in VAT, look, you can see the formatting applies itself to the new column. So if I came in here and said, take that and multiply it by, say, 21%, we have over here, and I hit enter, and look what it does. It instantly applies that all the way down. Now, I didn't do that. Okay, the table does that automatically, copies the formula all the way down the list for you. Now, let's find out. If I go to TBL small data, look at this. The new column has just been added. Remember that was A2 as far as G88. It's now A2 H88, and all I did was add a new column. If I get rid of that new column, so if I take away that data, right click, delete. Look, go back here, TBL small data, and you can see it instantly has shrunk now with that data. So that's what I mean by a dynamic data source. Every time you add data to it or take data away, your source, your range, your table is picking up that new data or shrinking with that as you take it away as well. Absolutely brilliant. One of my favorite features when it comes to Microsoft Excel. One last little piece that just really just adds that extra piece to the actual table itself is at any point you can also switch on a total row. So if you're looking for quick totals here, watch this. Tick the box that says total, okay? And I can come down to this total row here, and at any point I can say, okay, well, I'd like to get a sum total. Look at that, did it by default of the total column. I'd like to get an average of the units that were sold. And I'd like to maybe get a count of all the products that we have. So I'll just do a count here and you can see. So total of 86 products, averaging units sold 256 or 257, and you can see total sales of 185,677 and 14 cents. And again, I didn't create those formulas. All I did was switch on the total row and it did it for me. Now watch this. This is where it gets even better. So what if I was to suddenly say, okay, well actually, I'd like to see all the sales that we have for just pens, please. And I click OK, and look what it does. Every time you filter, the total bar changes. It's only showing you the totals of what you've just filtered by. I mean, how good is that? And at any point, I can just go back in, clear that filter, and you can see my totals will go back to the way they were. And I can just very quickly then switch off that total row. Now guys, if I haven't at this point convinced you how good tables are, I don't know what will. But for me, they're absolutely brilliant. And I use them in nearly everything that I do when it comes to Excel. Having that dynamic range can't convince you anymore. All right, guys, as usual, you like our videos? Check out our YouTube channel. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So like, share, do what you need to. You'll also get us on our website as well at www.investinu.ie. As always, guys, stay safe and I'll talk to you next week.